Now, in the old days of this channel, I probably would have made half a dozen videos about this topic before we got an ounce of news on it. It is still far beyond me why any of you think my content was better back then. And if you do, maybe keep it to yourself. I don't need my feelings hurt today. Batman Arkham Asylum is supposedly getting a reboot or a remake. Essentially, like, not rebooting the timeline as far as we know. This is if it is even true. This was originally reported by YouTuber Vera Dark, and it's been brought up over and over and over again over the last month. I was kind of waiting to see if any more news came from it or not, if there would be any kind of actual reveal or not, but we're, moving into the end of November here, and there still is nothing. So I want to talk about the possibility of this and what concerns me with it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that there are not remakes that I like, or even that there aren't remakes that substantially change things from the source material that I like. I think a lot of you know that my stance on remakes is the game should probably be old. It probably shouldn't be something that came out in the last couple of console generations, and that there should be a substantial purpose to it. Now, that said, there are takes on remakes out there, like any remake is soulless, is faithless, it has no purpose, and there are other takes like forget the past, kill it if you have to. I don't really fall under either of these. There are remakes I like Final Fantasy VII, which is honestly very different as well. There are remakes I like the recent Silent Hill 2 one, which I've covered several times on this channel, and there are a lot of remakes that just suck. So today we're going to talk about some of the thoughts I have around this, since I am a big fan of this series, some of the things that I think could go right, could go wrong. Maybe in the future I could make a video about 5 things I would actually want to see. You can let me know if you want to see that in the comments down below. But I do have a question for you, which is, would you ever want a Batman Arkham Asylum remake or reboot, but essentially a remake? And what would you want from it? Or would you even trust Rocksteady with it? That's kind of where I want to go with this first off, is that just right off the bat, we can look at Rocksteady as a company, and it is not the same group of folks that it was when they made Batman Arkham Asylum. Even if the founders hadn't left, even if you still had Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker there, it actually wouldn't be the same group. Because lots of people over the years left. That's how video game development works. A lot of times people stay in one place for a few years and they move on to a better offer. It's a competitive industry where people don't stay put for very long. But that said, even ignoring that and ignoring the amount of time that has passed since I believe about 2009 when the game originally came out, you also have a change in leadership that has massively affected this company. Now, no matter what you want to believe about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, that was the most recent project of Rocksteady. Does that always mean that something that follows up a project I don't like, or the majority of people don't like or don't think is good, will be bad? No, there's plenty of developers, development teams, studios, and even filmmakers who have come off of stinkers and gone on to make something good. But it's not a good indication of where that company is at. You have Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, the heads of that studio who helped found it, leave. You had them before that, allegedly running a lot of control around Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and being part of the reason why that materialized so poorly, and also part of the reason why it existed in the first place. Everybody can keep typing in the comments that they think it was a mandate from WB, but pretty much all sources that have spoke on this have said the opposite. It's possible. I bet they did push some of that live service stuff, but at the end of the day, Rocksteady did kind of put their foot down and choose to go in that direction as well. And it didn't turn out well. The writing style was significantly worse than any Arkham game as well. And I think that also shows when you look at who they used to work with and who they don't now. Yeah, you have the co-founders leaving. Yeah, you have the recent, or the turnover over the years. You have all of that stuff, but you also have the fact that there was no Paul Dini. Paul Dini was obviously very, very involved in things like the DCAU. Very good writer, involved in some of the best episodes around that, working hand in hand with Bruce Timm, who supplied the art, while Dini provided a lot of story direction and things like that. He's very good at writing characters. Now, that's not to say there weren't other writers in the DCAU, there were plenty of them, but Dini is just one of those architects that especially is responsible for things like Batman the Animated Series being as good as it turned out. He also did have his hands in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Again, that's not to say that without him you can't have a good game. I mean, if you're just remaking the story verbatim and you're changing some gameplay elements, well then the story's not going to change, right? But at the same time, there are elements of Arkham Asylum's story, as much as I like it, that maybe could use a facelift. There are a couple of things like characterizations that are just very shallow and quick, where we don't get to see the character very much, characters like Harley Quinn. But then again, you look at a character like that later on in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and it went completely the other direction. I mean, in something like Arkham Asylum, she's presented a little bit more like a dumb bimbo. I mean, hey, I'm glad she's hot. That's not my criticism. My criticism is just that she's kind of an idiot. But then you get to things like Suicide Squad, and they try to go the other way and act like she's a genius, but they don't actually fit that character into the continuity. Like, they weren't even able to fit that version of Harley Quinn in to the Arkhamverse. It feels like a totally different character. They spend, probably 20 minutes of in-game dialogue, not really, but it's a lot of lines, bringing up, why is Deadshot black now? Why is Deadshot black now? Why is he a black man now? Aren't you supposed to be white? So many different things that are just haphazardly written to get the story where they wanted to go. Even things like Poison Ivy. They just revived her as a kid and then put in some of the weird, most off-the-wall lines I've ever heard around that character, and didn't actually give her a good characterization. Like, there's a lot of characters in Suicide Squad that just had terrible characterization, and they made the Arkhamverse before that look like it was Shakespearean levels of quality writing. Now, I like the Arkham universe a lot, but there are a lot of characters that did get glossed over, that did just make a passing appearance, and because of that, we don't get to get a really good look at them as a character. So when you get into storytelling, nowadays, I think a lot of people are more picky about video game stories than they were in 2009. They want every character to have a purpose. They want every character to be three-dimensional. So that's somewhere where I'd say, okay, well, maybe you want to bring Dini back in, give him more time, have some good writers on this, maybe not some stupid consulting firms, which I think did definitely have a hand in Suicide Squad. Did they ruin the game? Probably not, but they probably didn't help. It was probably already bad, but I highly doubt the involvement of things like SBI would help that game. But that's also where the industry has gone. The industry has gone in this pandering direction of like getting in consulting firms, not stepping on anyone's toes, don't hurt anybody's feelings, change all these characters to match what we want it to be in pop culture. It's like maybe that Deadshot from the original games would have been a good character if we had seen him more, but we didn't see him enough, right? We barely saw him at all. He barely got any time for us to know who he was in any way, except just guy who shoots people. So then you go into Suicide Squad, they completely changed it, said, hey, the original was pretty much a fake, this is the real Floyd Lawton, and then they try and give him a character arc, which is bigger, I guess, than the original. So yes, it is an actual character arc, but it's also something where it like falls flat on its face, where it just comes down to, I don't like cops, and I hope my daughter's okay, and feel bad for me because I turned to a life of crime. And that's it, really. There's not really anything else to him. Like, you have a whole game to expand on this character now, so you give him an arc, right? Like, he actually does get an arc, so I will concede, yes, that's a thing, because you didn't have time for that before, but his arc is so bad, and you had a whole game to do that arc. And that's kind of the way everybody is in Suicide Squad. So when you're looking at their most recent project, I have to ask this, is this Rocksteady up to the task of reworking Batman Arkham Asylum? Would they leave the script exactly the same? I guess you could. It's already good enough. Like, I don't think it's the strongest Arkham story, but it's a good enough story that it's not bad. It's fun. It works. And the stuff around the Joker is pretty good. So you absolutely could leave it alone, but then you have a pretty short game. You can beat that game in 10 to 11 hours if you're just kind of taking your time going through. I suppose it could take you longer if you want to do a bunch of side collectibles and things like that. I've seen people blast through it way quicker than that when they know exactly what to do. People can get through that game in a few hours. So then you have to look at that as well and say, hey, is that long enough for a remake? Even when they did a remaster, they bundled it together with Arkham City, and I even had problems with that. I thought that some of the original art direction, some of the original coloring, things like that, were actually lost in Return to Arkham. Some people love it, a lot of people were not a big fan of it. It's just kind of there. But then now you're talking about a reboot, or a remake, I should say. Who knows if it would reboot a new timeline, but it is a total remake if this happens. And I have to ask if that Rocksteady is up to the task. And who left? Who left when Jamie Walker and Sefton Hill left to do 100-star games? Was it a lot of the people that were with them till the end of the line and were responsible for Suicide Squad not being good? Or was it the people who were doing a good job on that game? Like environmental artists? Was it people like, doing the face sculpting, doing the modeling for the characters? doing the coloring, things like that, like the things that are good in the game, because there are good things in the game. There absolutely are. It's a pretty game. And the facial capture and the way that they make characters talk and things like that, those are good. So it's like, did those talented people leave with them? That would be another question I have going into this. If you change any of the writing, are you actually going to improve it? Or is it going to fall flat on its face like it did in Suicide Squad? And will you be able to capture that atmosphere well? One of the biggest criticisms I've seen of Arkham Asylum, especially by modern gamers, is that it's slow. Is that it is claustrophobic. Like, these are the things I like about it, by the way. In the sense that, like, you're stuck indoors for a lot of it. You can't really fly around very much. Batman's a little slower. He's a little stiffer. I could see the combat getting a facelift and being a little better. You know, put it a little closer to Arkham City. I could see that. But my question is, like, what do you do with Predator? You know, if you have him zipping around the entire room being a powerhouse like in Night, you're removing a lot of the stakes of these indoor, tight-knit, close quarters, small-scale engagements where a thug spotting Batman can be instant death. It's actually not as easy to get out of a bad situation in Arkham Asylum as it is in really any other game. You know, any of these other games, you can pretty much grapnel boost away. Arkham Knight, you can call in the Batmobile in a lot of situations. There's a lot of ways to get out of different situations in the later Arkham games, but Asylum didn't have that. So you have to be very careful when messing with the Predator. And if you're not messing with any of these things, why remake it at all, right? If it's just gonna be the same exact game, why not just remaster it again and do a faithful job of it? So you're obviously going to change something, and that's my big question is, what would you actually change? And would you trust this Rocksteady to do it? I don't really know if I would. There are some things that I could see changing that maybe I would like. I could talk about that in a future video maybe if you're interested. I don't know if you're interested in this style of like rumor Arkham video anymore or not. Don't really know where the audience is at on that. But it seems to me like a lot of people are like eating this up. Like I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, this is gonna be great. If this happens, this would be amazing. I'm so excited. And I'm like, this is Rocksteady. This is the same Rocksteady that's writing quality went down without Dini. I still liked it, but it did go down with Night. And then completely fell off a cliff with Suicide Squad. And I'm supposed to trust them to remake like one of these games from my childhood that I loved? One of these things that like mattered to me? One of these things I'm passionate about? I mean, this series helped introduce me to some of my closest friends. This series introduced me to my wife. You know, it's like I have an emotional investment in this. I actually care about these games. I probably care about these games a lot more than most of the developers who would be working on this game. Not to sound like an asshole, but it's true. Like I have a genuine emotional connection to them. There's probably a lot of people who this would just be a job to. And I have to ask whether they care or not if they'd be up to this task. Because right now, the track record's not great. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I don't really know what to think, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. I have some other channels if you want to watch. We're playing through Batman Arkham Shadow over on my Let's Play channel. The link is in the description and top pinned comment down below. We also have an RPG focused channel, an anime focused channel, Patreon, channel memberships, a Discord. I've got a Twitter, which I guess is X now. All these different things, so a lot of this is in the description down below if you want to help support our channel, or you can use Fortnite code DJAY123 for helping support us. Speaking of DJAY123, you can also use that same code for 10% off your first purchase on our store, CosmoBunny.shop. This is a store where we take manga, magazines, comic books, all kinds of damaged books that are unable to be sold. A lot of them are often on their way to trash or landfills, and we take them and we turn them into new art for your home by creating transformative resin pieces. We take some of that paper, we repurpose it into something new, transform it, save some of that stuff, keep it out of a landfill, and then we recycle the rest. So I hope you'll check that out. I hope y'all have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.